Morning, Tom.
Morning.
Could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tom Canning. I'm the Chief Executive of the Boleyn Trust. We are a group of 8 schools across Newham and Tower Hamlets here in East London, all primary schools.
It's a large trust, and can you tell me about some of the challenges that you have within the trust around SEND?
Yeah, we're an interesting trust because 3 of our schools have got resource provisions, 2 for autism and 1 for PMLD. But our other 5 schools, we all operate in an inclusive setting. So any child in our community is welcome into our schools. And therefore we have to rise to the challenge to meet every child's needs, regardless of their starting points when they come to the school. That is something we take very seriously because with us, it's all about children's learning. So therefore, we have got to make curriculum adaptations to make sure that every child can not only access the curriculum, but has full entitlement and support that goes with it.
And I think we heard that from the class teacher and the head of the provision and some of the other staff that work collaboratively. I think that has come out this morning.
Oh, good. I'm pleased.
One of the hardest things sometimes is you said that children come in at very different starting points. So it's about how do you evidence where they're at, because sometimes you don't always get the accurate evidence coming in. This morning it was said that a child may come into this school and you're not actually quite sure where they fit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do how has evidence for learning really helped that? Because it's a big step forward, I think.
I think the beauty of evidence for learning is it's child-centred. And we're an inclusive borough with very few special schools in our borough. So therefore, early identification of need is a real issue in our learning community. So children who present themselves in the nursery or indeed the reception classes may have their needs diagnosed for the first time ever by a paediatrician, for example, or a member of the healthcare service, and that parent may not have been aware of his or her child having learning needs. So early identification has been a huge issue in our context. So therefore, when a child presents themselves at the nursery, we've got to be able to deal with a wide range of learning needs that present themselves. What we found with evidence for learning, because it's child-centred, it deals with children's abilities rather than disabilities. Fantastic. And that's our starting point, because this is about learning. It's not containing or giving children things to do. It's about presenting their learning with as much challenge as these children would have as their mainstream peers. And that is our starting point. We're very conscious about teacher workload as well, because tracking and identifying and making sure that progress for all our pupils with SEND is appropriate is very time consuming. And before, we were reinventing the wheel by all this observational data, support staff going around with clipboards and time-consuming events that, our feedback from the chalk face in the classrooms was there must be a better way of doing this. And there must be a clearer way of planning children's developmental needs. Back in the day with P-scales used to really frustrate me because we know that learning is not linear. So P1, P2 just didn't make sense. It was absolutely not how we work, because we know that learning for all pupils, regardless of learning needs, goes in many forms. It has a breadth. It goes, so it doesn't go in a linear fashion. Evidence for learning is very clear. Being child-centred, it looks at all the areas within the engagement model and really supports all key workers in that child's profile, whether it be the teacher, whether it be the support staff, whether it be the parent, whether it be an additional person in the classroom, to really focus on what are the exact learning needs of that child. And it acts as a guide in a very positive, child-centred fashion to really support that child's learning through the early years of nursery and reception. And what I love most about it, because we're looking at children with complex needs who are operating at a level pre-national curriculum, it dovetails beautifully into the early years framework, the 7 areas of learning. So it supports teacher assistants and teachers to see a seamless transition from some of the work pre-national curriculum into supporting these children into the early years environment of the 7 areas of learning.
Yeah,
For example, physical development, PSED,
Yeah.
it dovetails beautifully and it gives support to our support staff and teachers of where we're going next in the journey.
Yeah, and I think that's really good, because I think what it applies to complex children, but also those who are on SEND support.
Very much.
Which
very
came
much.
out this morning,
Yeah.
you know, about, well, when we actually can see what they can do, we can really adapt our teaching.
And that's spot on, because people would say to me, so why are you using this in the mainstream primary? Because it's primarily known as SEND support in specialist settings. It is as relevant, as important in the mainstream as in the specialist setting. And regardless of whether you've got a resource provision or not, some of our mainstream settings without resource provision, who have the same challenges of complex needs pupils coming into mainstream nursery and mainstream reception, equally relevant. And it's a real positive tool for all our schools.
That's fantastic, Tom. So how do you use EFL to sort of create some of the wider opportunities, maybe around CPD, parent engagement? That's a big thing right now. Have you got any views on where you think that's been really helpful, or where you want to take it next?
Yeah, no, it's important for us, because EFL really includes parents in the whole conversation that's going on, and therefore they're part of the natural dialogue with the teachers and the support staff. So that's brought a real cohesion with the parents and the staff in terms of children's learning. That's really, really a benefit of EFL. And secondly, you're right about CPD, because we use the videos from the online support to do CPD with our staff, and it's bespoke and it's there one-to-one with the support staff and the teachers. It's proved really beneficial. So we've brought that as a training tool across all 8 schools, and the feedback we've had has been really positive.
You know, you took this on, I think it was a bit after COVID, wasn't it? 18 months ago. What would be your advice to a new trust who's considering taking this on but not really sure about how to take the first step?
Okay, I would say to be brave and bold and innovative, because our starting point was the learning needs of the children. And quite clearly, it was about the learning, and I wanted their learning to have as much challenge as their mainstream peers. And to do that, our staff needed support through CPD, they needed encouragement, but they also needed a way of working that was really child-centred, that focused in on the learning needs of each individual child. And that's what EFL brought us. So I would say from that very first step, and that courage of thinking different and going into this way of working, the benefits have been enormous. So I would say to any other CEO or any other kind of head teacher, it's the way forward. It really is really child-centred, but also teacher-friendly.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.